Welcome to the Den of Tools.
Howdy ho, guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly tool bear, back again here in the old Den of Tools. Today, the bear's going to tell you about five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the most dangerous tools in your workshop, probably sitting there right now, glaring at you, plotting your demise behind your back. Yeah. Now, I got this data, compiled it all from a bunch of different sources. I looked at numbers from OSHA, the CDC, the CPSC, the NIH, and personal injury law firms. I kid you not, those guys take this sort of thing seriously. So first up, we're talking about injuries that actually not just you got hurt, but sent you to the emergency room. So with 5,400 on average per year injuries that take you to the ER, we got grinders. Now we're talking angle grinders and bench grinders, die grinders, any of those kind of grinders. And this photo's probably been going around the old interwebs here for a few years now, showing that when these discs break, they break with some vengeance. They got some power behind them. I know they say there's no such thing anymore as centrifugal force. They got different words for it and whatnot. I don't care what they say. That looks bad. All right. And thank goodness he had eye protection. And then I'm not going to show you any of the actual injury kind of stuff here because YouTube doesn't like it when you do stuff like that. And they smack me on the paw when I do it. So this is as close as we're going to get. But, you know, if you think it's just wheels like that, like the little grinder disc, this is a wheel off of a bench grinder. That's the reason they have those guards on these. These things do crack. They do explode. It does happen. And that's not alone. Wire wheels. These things are nasty. They get spin at the high rate of speed and they shed those wires. And those are little metallic darts of, we mean not death, but pain and suffering. That's for sure. Especially for your eyes, which is why we always talk about wearing eye protection in the shop. This thing. This has become a fad lately, this whole wood grinder wheel kind of thing. It's a chainsaw on an angle grinding wheel. And really, it's nothing more than an angry woodchuck on meth, if you ask me. In fact, old Stumpy Nubs, trying to live up to his name, he got bit by one of these. He's done a couple videos on it. In fact, he just did a video yesterday talking about the fact that they've banned this in the UK. Now, he doesn't support banning them, and I support his support of that. But he does say that he's never going to have one of those in his shop again, and I don't blame him. I don't want to play with one. I suggest you don't either. That said, you know, I'm going to be calling out a bunch of YouTubers here because there's this idea that injuries can't happen to you. It's like, oh, I'm an expert. I've been doing this, blah, blah, blah. These are all people who've been doing this stuff for years and years and years. They're experienced and accomplished woodworkers or you know, guys on the job site and stuff like that. I've known plenty of people who've been doing, you know, been in the trades for years and still managed to pull down a nice little injury there. So it can happen to the best of us. Now, I've been lucky. The only thing I ever happened to me sort of like this was with a Dremel. And believe it or not, you think, how can a Dremel hurt you? Well, I was grinding on some metal and I was doing it at a weird angle and it snagged the two. It bit into the workpiece. It yanked the wheel out of the Dremel and shot it across the room like a bullet into the drywall. I kid you not. The shaft on the wheel after it came out was bent at a 45-degree angle. Luckily, it didn't come back towards me because I was thinking, oh, it's a Dremel. How bad could it be? Good enough to go in a drywall kind of bad. All right, next up with 6,800 injuries sending you to the ER is I hate these things, man. And I hate them. I mean, they're very useful, but they are scary and you need to respect them. And we're talking about joiners. We're talking about planers. Now, they lump these all together for some reason. Routers and shapers. Now, if you don't know what a shaper is, it's essentially, if you look at, that's a routing table, and you've seen bigger versions and stuff like that. That's what this is. This is a router and a 6.7 liter Cummins had a baby. That's what this thing is. It's an industrial router. They call them shapers. And they are hot spinning, you know, mutilating machines. In fact, I will say this, of all the people I know who've lost digits to woodworking, it was to a router or a shaper. That's what, and they're not pretty because they don't have a tendency to take just one. They want to take them all. All right. Perkins Builder Brothers. I got to call them out. They're great guys. These are true experts in their field. One of the brothers over there, I don't remember which one. And I'm not going to link directly to the videos or any of that stuff. You can go find him. But he set his hand down on a jointer that was running and did not have a blade guard on it, and he lost several digits because of that. I can't imagine what that sort of injury is like, and I don't want to find out, to be entirely honest. He's, recovered, he's back on the job, he's doing better, but this is not something anybody ever wants to experience. And I'm just showing this again. I'm not trying to call these guys out. I don't blame them. It can happen to anybody. I've had workshop accidents happen to me. I know it can happen to them. They unfortunately caught the short end of the stick on that one. All right, at 14K solid gold injuries, we've got circ saws. I know people are like, oh, how bad can a circ saw be? Yeah, it's a hot spinning wheel of angry teeth there. It's going to get you if you're not careful. Now, typically, of course, people look at it going after fingers or shooting stuff back in your eye. But one of the injuries a lot of people don't think about is when you get kickback. And yes, you can get kickback on a handheld circular saw. In fact, it happens quite often. It can rip it right out of your hand. And where's it going to send it? Well, it might send it shooting up. It might cause it to tumble, but often it sends it shooting straight back. And what's right behind, often when you're braced and cutting, look, what's back there? That's his leg. What's in your leg? Well, luckily, there's not this thing called the femoral artery running down your leg that could be a problem. Thank goodness for that. No, this is something you need to think about. Yes, they have the guards that should come down, but remember, mechanical safeties are just that. They're mechanical, and anything mechanical is a device that can and will fail at some point in time. Now, I'm going to send you over to Smarter Every Day on this one. Now, they do a demo demonstrating kickback and showing that they actually invented a device using some machine learning and a few sensors. It doesn't seem it's like all that expensive. The software probably a little bit more so that does it, that senses kickback and engages the brake on the tool. Why every circ saw built today does not have this, I have no idea, because they should. It's clearly something that should be built into the saws. I'm not going to say it should be mandated by the government, but I think that, that I would buy one. If it cost 20, 30, $50 more, I think for the peace of mind and the safety, I would probably buy one. And again, people are like, well, if you're smart, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever cut through a piece of wood and find out there's a nail in it or a staple or something like that? It's caused kickback. Did you know it was there? Are you psychic or something? No, we're not. There's always going to be something random that happens, and having an extra level of safety doesn't hurt. All right, at 37,000 feet, 37,000 ER visits, we've got, believe it or not, nail guns. Now, I was surprised to find this one out. I always thought nail guns were fairly safe and all that. I mean, they got the little safety device. You can't really pull the trigger on unless the shoe's depressed and all that. But you know what? Back in the day, there weren't as many issues. There were some here and there, but they had to be connected to an air hose, and there weren't as many nail guns out there. Well, guess what? Then they came out with electric. Then they came out with cheap electric ones. Everyone and their brother is now selling a cheap cordless nail gun, and that means, more nail injuries. Something like this, people doing, setups like this, it looks like, oh, this won't be a problem. It's only going to go in so far. Famous last words, and then you end up looking like this. It's not a good look for anybody. I definitely don't want to do it. And I got to tell you, you got to be really careful with these things. We had an injury in our local community where a dad was working in the backyard with a nail gun, and a toddler walked out while dad had turned, picked up a piece of lumber, and in that amount of time, the toddler had crossed the yard, grabbed the nail gun, and nailed himself through the wrist bone with it. And luckily, he's okay. He's doing better and everything else. And our prayers go out for the family. But these things happen this way. You got to be careful. Got to watch out for stuff like this. We talked about this. I mentioned it before. The safety tip down here, that has to be depressed. So clearly, I'm safe on all these nail guns as long as I watch out for that, right? No. In fact, many of the, as it says here, smaller trigger-operated nail guns don't have safety tips, especially like pin nailers and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you don't need it. Maybe they're getting into smaller places. I don't know the mechanical reasons why they don't have them, but they don't. And you best be careful. Again, just like I always teach anyone for any kind of, that type of G word kind of operation, which is finger off the dang trigger unless you're intending to use it in the moment. All right, get some trigger discipline there, folks, and we'll all be safer for it. In fact, it's so bad the CDC commissioned a comic book. I kid you not, straight talk about nail gun safety, and this is a legit comic book about how to be safe with your nail guns and how to watch out and make sure that that everything's up to speed. Anyway, I'll put a link to that down below. I'm also going to put a link to all the YouTubers that I talked about here, so you can go check them out and hear it in their own words. 40,000, the King of the Hill. This is the one you've been waiting for. The most dangerous game, as it were. Who is it out there that is just waiting in the darkness for you? It's your table saw. I tell people time and time again, table saws are the most dangerous object in their workshop. Unfortunately, it's also the one that's the most sought after, especially by new woodworkers, people getting into DIY. First thing they want is a big, super powerful table saw, and I constantly tell people, hey, let's start slow. Let's work up to these things. It doesn't matter whether we're talking a job site saw all the way up to a full contractor saw, or even in the middle of the Goldilocks zone with like a hybrid, kind of saw like this. They're all pretty dangerous and all for the same reasons. And that is, you got a large exposed blade spinning towards you. And there's several different ways to get injured by these things. Of course, talking about fingers and stuff like that, going through the saw, going forward, everything's, well, that's fine. I know several people who got injured reaching for the offcut past the saw, and it getting dragged back through the blade, dragging their finger with them. Jimmy DiResta, who's 1.93 million subscribers. This guy his father was in the woodworking, construction, trade stuff. He's into it. He's been doing it his entire life. He's famous for doing this stuff. I had a chance to talk to him. He told me about his injury. And I think that's exactly what happened to him, if I recall correctly. And then, he even tweeted about it. You can see it on his Twitter page 3 years ago. Now, this was posted back in, 2013. So this happened in 2010. He severed his pinky through the bone. It's still there, but half an inch shorter. This was not like, hey, I just, cut off the tip kind of thing. Now, there's a link there in this, and you can type it in. I'm not going to link to this or anything like that. But it cut his pinky clean off, and they had to reattach it. Now, SawStop. This is the reason SawStop came out. They invented this technology, and nobody would buy it. None of the manufacturers wanted anything to do with it, so they had to make their own saw. Now, their patents are about to expire, and everybody and their brother's suddenly going to have one. You got to love the way big industry, especially in the tool industry, works. Oh, we don't really need it until you prove that there's a market for it. They're fantastic saws, but they don't keep you 100% safe. In fact, Jimmy DiResta, again, says this was in 2020. He had kickback on his SawStop. Luckily, it engaged, which kept it from being worse, but it nearly ripped his fingernail off and damaged his finger quite a bit. And there's a link to it. You can see the injury and all that kind of stuff. So remember, all the safety devices in the world aren't better than common sense, okay? But sometimes you get working, you get in the moment, you get in the flow, as it were. I know, I've been there, and I've had kickback on a saw. Luckily, it was off to the side. It was actually, people try to say, well, the off-cut piece is never the problem. In my case, it was the off-cut piece. It drifted back into the blade, hit the blade, and spun back towards me, going between my arm and my torso. Gave me a nice little rash on both of them, but I was okay. I shouldn't have honestly been in the shop. Sick at the time, was on meds and stuff. It was like flu, cold kind of stuff, and I really just shouldn't have been around power tools. All right, and we talk about what kickback is, how it happens, pinching into the blade. Of course, I want to reiterate that it's not just the piece between the blade and the fence, which is the predominant injury that happens, the predominant cause of kickback, but the off piece can be an issue as well, which is why I won't ever use a saw that does not have a riving knife. Here's John Hines' video. He talks a lot about kickback and riving knives, and you can go and hear his words, hear other opinions and stuff on it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about table saw kickback, and I highly suggest you watch as many of them as you can make yourself do it, because this is a really important thing, and you really got to pay attention to it. In fact, Mike from Mike and Lauren, he was trying to cut off a small piece, caught it right in the snout. That's kind of smart. Again, I want to tell you, these are people who know what they're doing. They've been doing it a while, and it can happen to any of us. So what's the safest power tool in your shop? How about the Lonely Jigsaw? Yep, it's just a remarkable tool. It does what it does, and it's not completely safe. No power tool out there is entirely safe. but this is by far the safest tool to use. I know that like when I took shop class back in the day, jigsaws and scroll saws and stuff were what we worked with primarily, and there was a reason for that. So this is by far the safest tool that you're going to use. Now, I'm not going to say all jigsaws are entirely safe. Barrel-handed jigsaws have a significant problem, and that is users getting a sense of entitlement, feeling self-important, changing their name to Rob, growing a neck beard, drinking, soy cafe lattes from the local store, and dressing like this. Don't do that. Don't go down that route. A D-handle jigsaw was good enough for my grandfather. It's good enough for you. It's good enough for me. Let's just stay with what works there, okay? All right. The tools, though, I want to talk about the tools that are the most dangerous not to use. And I mentioned this before. Eye protection, and eye protection. This is my favorite pair that I use all the time. The DeWalt DPG94 safety glasses. They're $8. They're fantastic. They're comfortable. For those people who like something that's a little more lightweight, they make the DPG 55s. As you can see, they're a little more streamlined, a little sporty or something like this. I just saw that Carhartt has these, which look very similar to the DeWalt's. I kind of like the style there. I may have to give those a try. On top of that, air dust collection, all right? This is not actual, I say air filtration is the right word. Dust collection is for keeping your shop clean. Air filtration keeps your lungs clean, okay? I'm working on a video I'm going to be doing here to help people understand the difference because and there's a whole thing where people are like, oh, just strap an air filter to a fan and you got the same thing. It just isn't the same thing. You don't get the same cubic feet per minute kind of movement. And we're hopefully going to work on a video here to show you exactly why that's true. Now, some honorable mention for really dangerous tools out there that didn't make the list. It's not that they're not dangerous enough. They're not really shop kind of tools. They're outdoor power equipment, chainsaws. The riding lawnmower is a big one. And that's mostly people going on hills, falling over, that kind of stuff. Another one you just definitely don't want to touch now. This is a hand tool, probably the most dangerous hand tool, and that is your wife's good kitchen shears. If she finds those in your shop, may God have mercy on your soul. Anyway, that's all the Bear has for you today. If there's a tool out there you think that people don't respect enough and you think needs someone to pay a little closer attention to, put it down in the comments. If you had any near misses or something, share it. Let's be honest about this and say, because people like to blow it off. We like to puff up and act like we're all men and, I'd never have a problem because I know what I'm doing. It happens to everybody, and especially it's going to happen to you if you don't respect the tool you're using for. So let's hear your stories down below. While you're down there, don't forget to chomp the old like button, smash that subscribe, ring the bell on the way out. That's all this Bear has for you today. You all take care. God bless, and as always, shine on.